Hello and welcome to Hot Topics from the Soul. We are so delighted to be back with you. We took the whole month of July off to regenerate and recoup from all year long. And I have my co host with me.
And good evening. Good evening. It is so good to be back, and I'm excited to be back. And, I'm just full of enthusiasm as we are back on this beautiful month of August, being the eighth month, and eight being the number of new beginnings. And there are so many new beginnings and so many special moments in this month. And I want to start off by saying, particularly today, I want to say happy anniversary to you, Dr. Val. You and your wonderful husband, Alex, have been incredible individuals. And I want to say happy anniversary to you all. And I've been privileged to be a part of the journey as that ship sailed and has begun to do some wonderful things. And I want to say happy anniversary to you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. J. You know, I talk about my beloved all the time. And for those of you who've never seen him and don't follow me on social media, well, on Facebook, I'm full and I haven't created another account. But this is my beloved right here. This is my
That's my brother.
king, Alex. His smile won me over from the first time I met him. It was so magical. And I am so happy that
Yes.
we have been together 9.5 years and been married 8, and we're continue to thrive. And for you ladies who are saying, "Oh, I'm in my 50s, I'll never find someone that'll treat me well," I marched down that aisle at 56, and I'll be celebrating my 65th birthday in October.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, it gets better. It gets better later with time and everything. And we just mesh. And when you meet that special someone, don't miss your moment, which is what the show is about tonight. A lot of times we have expectations that are not aligned with what God would have us to have. We go, we go to the extreme and we're looking at other people's relationships and say you want that and you want to do this, but there is a season and a
Absolutely.
time and a place for all things. So don't miss your moment.
I love the way you pin that because that's exactly right. Moments and seizing moments are so important. We understand everything is based upon moments, time, seasons. Inside of many things, there are moments that are coming. These moments are strategic. These moments are defined. These moments sometimes are even Kairos moment. And these moments, I believe, are designed. They're designed in mind of that right opportunity, the right connection, the right intersection. Now, inside of that, those are opportunities that we must take advantage of. And so I echo what you said. Don't miss your moment.
Absolutely, Dr. J. Not only can you miss your moment as it relates to a relationship, you can miss your moment in a financial situation that could be detrimental to you and your whole entire family. Sometimes, people come before us with, things that are too good to be true. But we have to use our righteous judgment and we have to do our due diligence in researching those business relationships that we embark on, because a lot of them are scams, but there are some financial moves that must be made in order to get to the next level. And a lot of times we as individuals, we're so fearful. People talk about immigrants and why is it that they are able to buy things and accumulate things, and we're buying from them. It's because they took advantage of the moment.
Exactly.
They took advantage of the season and the opportunities. There's so many opportunities that are here for us to empower ourselves to generate wealth, not only for ourselves, but for our generations that will follow after us. But we're too afraid to reach out. We stand on the sideline looking at what people are doing instead of participating in what they're doing to get to the next level. So it is up to us to seize the moment. Don't miss your moment. Don't miss opportunities because of fear. A lot of times we miss in relationships,
Right.
financial endeavors, home purchases, that if we would have just stepped out by faith and purchased that home when it was available, we could have saved a couple of $100 if we would have moved. But because we held back in fear, how am I going to do this? Well, you know what? It's even harder to do it now because so much has been raised in the housing market to the property that you were probably looking at is probably 2 or 3 times more than it was when you were afraid to step out.
Exactly.
So we miss opportunities because we are afraid. But the greatest fear is missing the moment, not seizing that opportunity while it was at hand. Because a lot of times the only place you can go is up. Because if you find yourself stagnant in one place, that's all the only place you're going to be is right there.
Right. You said something that's so important because one of the things that causes us to miss our moment is fear. And sometimes it's fear of the unknown. And we rather stay complacent in what we become comfortable in, although we're miserable, but we're comfortable and familiar with it, than to take that opportunity to move forward. And I believe one of the things that will cause us to not miss our moment is discernment. That's what you're talking about, really being able to discern the moment and understand that when we look at things that may cause us to fear, we never grow inside of comfort. We always grow when we're confronted with something that is bigger than us, something that we may not understand. And so there are certain moments that it is critical that we don't miss because they are what we call defining moments. These are moments that can set the trajectory of our lives. These are things that can reset our path. These are things that could lead to either greater doors opening. There are many times people struggle with their stagnation, or they're stagnant and they're struggling with where they are. But they're struggling oftentimes because of the fact they do miss the moment. The door was open. We came into 2024 talking about this is in the Jewish year, this is the year of the open door. The open door. Well, guess what? The door is still open. But if you don't walk through the door, you are missing your moment. So the open door is absolutely required that we walk through it. We can pray prayers. Think about it. We pray prayers. God, open a door for me. Lord, make a way for me. The door has been made. The door has been made. The door has been open. It's been made open. But if we miss the moment, when we miss the moment, we miss all the things that come with that moment of growth, that moment of expansion, that moment of knowledge, that moment of new collaboration, that moment of life, that moment of making the impact and the impression that we need to make. And we must be willing to stand up against our fear, the fear of the unknown. Isn't that exactly what faith is? It's the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Because if you knew what it would look like before you even enter it, it's not faith at all. So missing our moment, we don't want to miss our moment. We don't want to miss our moment when our name is called. We don't want to miss our moment when the doors have been opened. We don't want to miss our moment when literally we can see that the Red Sea has been parted for us and all we need to do is walk therein. So it is so incredibly important that we are not immobilized, that we're not immobilized, that we have not been imprisoned in our present. And therefore, we end up forfeiting the ultimate for the immediate. No, don't miss the moment. You've got to rise above this thing that you call fear and recognize, no, this is my moment. I'm going to jump, as Les says so often. I'm going to jump and I'm going to grow wings on the way down. Either way it goes, listen, the possibility of me rising and being afloat and being able to fly away is just as great as me going straight down.
Absolutely true, Dr. J. I think about, we've known each other like over 35 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I've always worked. And I didn't always tell people my business. You didn't know for about 10 years or more that I was a victim of domestic violence. But I kept working. I kept doing what was necessary to provide for my children. And, one of the things I do is I tell women all the time, don't look at what your spouse isn't doing, but look at what he is doing. And you build around what he is doing, whether it's good or bad, and you do what you need to do to make sure that you're okay and that your children are okay. And a lot of times I had to take risk. I had to stand up on faith. I would go and get these jobs where they would be like, can you do this? Can you do this? And I said, yes, I can do it, because in my mind, I could do it. And all I
Absolutely.
had to do was put the weight behind it to
Yeah.
participate in what they were doing, because I was very sharp and always intelligent enough to
Mhm.
look and study and catch on real quick. And I, most of every job I had, I went in as administrative assistant and I wound up running the companies. So
Absolutely.
that's how I learned business. And a lot of times we go into jobs and we just stay stagnant where we are instead of learning the whole operation of where we are, because you will need that into your belt of knowledge so that you can thrust forth and be able to bring it into your future at a later time. Don't, despise small beginnings, because you shall reap if you faint not. A lot of times we think that we're going through situation and it's never going to change. If I thought that nothing would change, I would still be stuck in that bad marriage and, you know, going from pillar to post with my children. Instead of standing up in faith like I did, I stood up in faith and I moved beyond what I could see. I knew there was better, I knew there was greater, and I knew if it was going to be, it had to be up to me. God gives us everything we need to get to the next level. He said in his word, it's in him we live,
We move.
we move, and we have our being. That means that no matter what, if we take on the nature and the mindset of the fact that he is who he says he is, and we put that into action, become mobile in doing, a lot of times we sit around waiting for the manifestation of the promise to come instead of being out there working until it comes. Because a
Exactly.
lot of times, our assignment is in a line with the knowledge we collect along the way of the journey.
Mhm.
If we're not collecting no knowledge, how can we move and shift to the next level if we haven't taken on anything? And a lot of times it's because we're lazy. We're
Mhm.
lazy and we sit back wanting things to come to, women be like, oh, I want my man, I want my man. Well, you can't get your man if you're watching reality TV, looking at all that craziness. And then when he comes along, you start acting a fool because that's what it looks like on television.
Absolutely. You said something that is, once again, that is so important because it takes a degree of walking out of your comfort zone. Many people don't know the nature of our friendship. As you said, we've known each other for 35 years, and we've seen each other through our struggles and through the good and the bad. And the one thing that I could say that has been so consistent about you, as you just alluded to, 10 of those years, I had no idea. Here I was, a domestic violence specialist and all that, had no idea of what you were actually going through because the fact you never took the time to go, whoa, it's me. You never threw up the white flag and said, oh God, I'm not going to make it. You were consistent and you were persistent. That was your attitude in terms of things. You understood the fact that you didn't have time to have a pity party. You didn't have time to necessarily say, please, someone come rescue me. But you can continue to be persistent, moving forward, understanding the fact that I've got to keep on going forward. And the thing I love about it, because we now have seen the story unfold, you did so. You understood how important it was that your children saw their mother be strong, productive, and not allow them. In other words, I felt that you protected them from what could have been a very, very knockout blow in their lives, but you seized the moment. Sometimes seizing a moment means that you look in the very face of fear and adversity, and you say, "Bring it on," because I'm
Right.
going through this, and that is what you did. And so when we talk about seizing a moment, sometimes we're afraid to get our feathers ruffled, but yet it's still that's part of the moment. We don't know what we're made of until we're tested. We don't know what we can do until we take another step forward. Life is like a tea bag. It is not worth anything until it's gone through some hot water. And if we're afraid to go through the hot water, we'll miss the moment because it is through the hot water that reveals into us character. It also becomes a barometer. It gives us a measurement of where we are. I grow in my faith. I grow through my adversity. I grow through my challenges because adversity introduces a man or a woman to themselves.
To themselves.
So we have to understand in seizing a moment, seizing opportunity, seizing the door. And another thing I like to say, some people won't seize a moment because they're too weighted down by others' opinions of them. They're too weighted down by others' a liking or dislike of them. We have to rise above the limitations that others try to put on us. And it's no problem. We don't have the ability to necessarily stop people's opinion of us, but we don't have to subscribe to it. We don't have to adopt it. We don't have to allow it to define us. So when we're talking about seize the moment to say the best antidote, the best response to those that have counted you out, the best response to those that have a limited perception of what you're able to do, the best response to it is to go right by it. In other words, you said it earlier. Some people live life. 3 types of people in this world. Those are people who do what? Those are people that make things happen. There are people who not only make it happen, but there are those individuals who simply think about what will happen, and then there are people who get left behind and they wonder what happened.
What happened?
Yeah, and so we have to be the ones to seize the moment. And sometimes we have to seize the moment even when it goes against popular opinion. We have to seize the moment when folks have shown doubt in our lives. We have to seize the moment when people have said, you'll never make it. We have to seize the moment when people are trying to hold your past against you. You have to seize the moment. There are people who will cement you in your past. They will cement you and they will cement you, and if you would, moralize you in your past failure. Because of the fact they don't have sense enough to understand that you were experiencing grace in that moment. You was going through your season of testing, or better yet, your season of proving. And the fact of the matter is this: you're being proven when you're going through things. You're being proven in those moments. So when we seize the moment, what does that mean? Just when you thought you had counted me out, I may be knocked down, but I'm not knocked out. I am answered the bell before the count of 10. And what that means is this: that I see this opportunity. I'm going to seize this opportunity. Don't be afraid to jump out. Don't be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to look forward. Don't be afraid, because we have to seize the moment. You know, in seizing the moment, Dr. Val, that's exactly what we're seeing happening even on the political front. You know, 17 days ago, 16 days ago, we didn't know that President Joe Biden was going to decide to step down. We didn't know that. But in doing so, Vice President Kamala Harris have what? Seized the moment. Immediately jumped on it. In record-breaking campaign of raising money in less than 14 days, over $300 million raised. She seized the moment. She recognized, here's the opening. Here's a moment that is there, and she took advantage of it. And that's what we have to understand our moment. Our moment doesn't always sound a bright light and say, hey, I'm here. No. Sometimes we have to discern our moment. We have to recognize when things are aligning themselves, when things are playing right into our hand. The reality is we will be ready, because we've heard it said so many times. It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have it than to have an opportunity and not be prepared.
Well, you know, one of the things that needs to be done, Dr. J, in a lot of us is decompress ourselves of the confusion that's in our head and realign our thought process and change the associations that you have. Because, you know, I was talking to this young lady the other day, and she was, you know, sharing some things with me. And she has these friends that she's aligned with all the time, and she tells them all a business. And then when she doesn't play by what they say do, then they turn on her. And I said, why do you need to be validated by people that don't matter? You made them a priority over yourself. And that's what we do as a lot of people. We miss our moment because we're relying on somebody's opinion of who we are and who we should be with and what we should be doing.
Right.
And a lot of times it's because of jealousy. They'd be like, child, I wouldn't do that. Child, I wouldn't take that. Well, you know what? I went through that process when I was going through my divorce. I told one person what I was going through during my marriage. And they took it and they started whispering and telling different people about it. And I knew I couldn't trust that person again, because if it would have gotten back to the perpetrator, it
Right.
would have been, hard on me and the children. So they didn't realize what harm they were doing by exposing when I went in confidence. So I changed my association with the people I went with. And when I communicated, I always communicated with people that were seasoned. And what I mean by seasoned, I mean people who I know had gone through something and came out, who were mothers, if you would,
Absolutely.
seasoned mothers that knew how to pray and intervene in the spirit for me, to give me the strength to do what I needed to do. And when they spoke a word and said, it's going to be okay, baby, I'm
Yes.
praying, I embraced that. And it gave me the strength of Samson. When I said, you know what, I can do this. It was just like when I was growing up and when I was in my father's house. And anytime I felt down and like I couldn't make it, daddy would say, little girl, it's going to be okay. You can do it. I believe in you. I know you can do it. And I would take such courage because daddy said I can do it.
Absolutely.
And see,
Absolutely.
this is what we need and who we need to surround ourselves with people that genuinely say, you can do it. You just fight
Exactly.
your way, because you got to fight your way to success. It's not always going to come handed to you on a platter. You're going to have to fight your way to success. And a lot of times why you have to fight to get to the next level is so that you can be trusted with what has been given to you. If it comes easy, you won't regard it or respect the gift that it is.
Exactly.
But when you have to fight for it,
Mhm.
then you give it more of a regard, and then you hold it passionately. And when you're ready to pass that baton, to share it and give it to some individuals that can be trusted so that they can carry on the journey, you'll be able to do that. You have to go through sometimes the process, and the processes aren't always easy. It is not always easy. I look at your life, Dr. J. You'll be turning 60.
Hey, 17 more days, right?
You'll be turning 60. And I'm
Yes.
so excited about that, because I think about all the people that you've helped and the lives you've sown into, and how you work tirelessly to make sure that everybody's okay, from domestic violence to political, to the Christian dome and to your job. You go beyond and to make sure that everybody's okay. And I'm so happy that you decided to give yourself a 60th birthday party.
Well, if truth be told, Dr. Val, I'm not sure if I decided. It's just a few people that cared enough about me that said it is time. And they convinced me. I have a hard time celebrating myself. I just simply do, because my motto has always been, it's the fact that, we've been called, we've been chosen. You've heard me. My whole mantra has been, we've been created with purpose, for purpose, and on purpose. And so I believe in that saying by Winston Churchill, said that we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And so my life has been about giving. And so inside of that, the ones that have come together and said, listen, it is time that you are celebrating and appreciate it, because it's
And you
not just
should be. You
yeah,
should
it's not
be.
just my 60th birthday coming, but 40 years of ministry and public service. It just culminates at the same time. In the 40 years, you've never heard of me ever having an anniversary or appreciation. Unheard of. You've never heard of me ever requiring that at all. I've never have had this whole public stance of, celebrate my birthday. I haven't. My birthday have gone through many different things. Remember back in 2011, I lost my father on my birthday. So my
Yeah.
birthday had many different things to happen. And so in this year here, where, some very close friends, family, and different ones that love me, even as yourself, they said, this is the year that we need to do this. You need to be celebrated. And I still had a hard time doing it. So what they decided to do, thank you, is that on August 24th, that's the day after the birthday, that's on a Saturday, there's going to be a 60th birthday and 40 years of service and ministry celebration for me at the Riviera Beach Marina there at the event center. And I'm grateful for it. It's going to be a great time. It won't be it's not going to be a regular church service. It's going to be a celebration. It's going to be tributes. It's going to be a celebration. It's going to be art. It's going to be music. It's going to be it's going to be dance. It's going to be all of those things as we look back over the 40 years of ministry and the 60 years of life. And why is that important? Because as you said, it's not just been the work of that we've done in the church. Yeah, I can look back and talk about the many people that have been saved up under ministry. I can look at the many people whose lives have been touched up under ministry. I can look at many people who have been blessed by television in some cases, radio broadcasts, outreach ministry, being there for families, showing up outside of. There are people that have been blessed that never was a member of my church when I pastored. There are people that we've reached out to. It wasn't my prerequisite. We reached out to those that was heard. When they reached out to us, we responded. The letters that's been written for people who was trying to get into college and try to get a job, a recommendation letter, and being able to see those things go forth. People get into special schools. All of those things have happened. And sometimes I forget about it. People run into me and they remind me, say, you might not remember me, but you did this for me. You did that.
I know. Yeah.
Because of the fact it never was done for recognition. It was done because that is the way the Lord has called me to be. So having said that, Dr. Val, I'm just immensely, I'm proud. I'm appreciative. I'm excited. I'm getting very excited for this day that's coming. And some people said, well, hold up, then why is there a $65 charge? Well, it's not a $65 charge at all. I don't look at it as a charge. This is the thing you have to understand. Inside of celebrating these years of service and those things, you're not just going to get this. You're going to have a beautiful celebration, banquet, dinner, semi-formal affair. And what a way, just a simple way of saying, hey, thank you. Happy birthday, or whatever it is. And that's all we're saying, doing. And for many that may watch this, you may not be able to be here in South Florida, but the same means is there. If you want to just send a gift or a tribute, or just want to say, hey, thank you, Dr. Thicklin. I was inspired by you. I often say, people talk to me all the time about, well, how do you do it? How can you hold your composure when you're performing funerals and when you're doing these things and other? Well, let me say something to you. I perform eulogies for folks I never knew. I've been there for families who couldn't find someone to even send with them. And that's not a brag. I'm just simply saying, because of the fact I've never forgotten about the least lost and left out.
Amen.
And it didn't matter, Dr. Val. I mean, here's an individual. I'm not blowing my horn or to my thing. It was never a distinction between me. The same guy who was the recipient of the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award up under President Barack Obama is the same guy who gets down there in the trenches and get his hand dirty. The same guy who have been recipient of many different awards have been the same guy who have led marches and led protests and have stood up against, if you would, racism and police brutality, have stood up for voting injustice and making sure that we had voting rights. The same guy who has been there, as you know, lifelong domestic violence advocate and making sure and being part of those voices to change those things. I never have subscribed to being a regular, if there be such a thing, regular preacher. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying ministry to me have never been confined to a pulpit.
Right.
Because the whole world has been the ground. It's been the marketplace, reaching lives, touching lives, understand advocacy, empowering fathers, empowering families. All of those things have been about the legacy I hope to live. Back in 2011 when my father passed, and it was a very tough thing because it was on my birthday, and I really went through a few years, Dr. Val, not even knowing how to celebrate my birthday anymore. Matter of fact, I went for a few years without even acknowledging my birthday on those years until I saw another young lady who happened to be the daughter of a fairly new acquaintance of mine, and he passed unexpectedly on her birthday. And when I went to his service and I saw that daughter get up in the pulpit and she began to talk about the fact of her father passing on her birthday, and she found light in it. She gave the scripture that corresponded to her birthday, and it freed me. And what I recognized then is that I don't want to despise the day that which I was born, but rather I wanted to do and make sure I continue to do the work I was doing. When I eulogized my father, I will never get the message was, as I eulogized him, a life lived, a legacy left. And that's exactly about what my life. It's about a life lived and a legacy left. It's not about fame. Never have wanted fame. I never have done things just to be seen. It's always been about the fact of being of obedience. Once again, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. And that's what it's been about. And I'm excited about it, Dr. Val.
I'm excited too, Dr. J. And you know, people that complain about the price. I remember when I did my 60th birthday party, and you know, people call almost every week. They have needs, and because of who I know and who I am, they always think I got money and I should always kick in and participate. And I always, what I told you a couple of weeks ago, this person reached out to me, and I actually, you know, got a little angry because I said, you know what? In all the years, you know, the Soul of a Woman Foundation is over almost 30 years old. And in all the years, this person is never supported, but every time there's a crisis or a need, they call the Soul of a Woman. Well, the Soul of a Woman hasn't generated money in years before pandemic because of the fact that I haven't done anything. So every time I give, or these people reach out to me when they have needs, and a lot of them are significant needs. And, you know, most of the times I'm led to give, and I ain't gonna lie, because my compassion, I'd be like, if it was my child, or if it was my parent or my sibling or something happened, I take on that mentality and I try and sew into the situation. But you know, when you have events of celebration like this, you know, there's a cost to put all this on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you think $50 and $60 is a lot when you can go to McDonald's and spend $30 through the drive-through,
easily,
when you can order pizza and spend $50 on pizza, and some of you pizza and booze, and spend over $100. But when you want to celebrate somebody that is worthy of it and serving in the community and doing things and being there for you, you know, it's like you're robbing. And it is more blessed to give than to receive, because trust me, it comes back. I say that I'm living on the blessings of the Lord because I've sown. There is really and truly a benefit to sowing, to giving. You know, you see wealthy individuals, Jewish especially, they tithe, they give their monies, they build their communities, and they're blessed. And you wonder why they so blessed. It's because they give. They learn the principle of giving, of sowing and reaping. I go to a mega church, as you know, and sometimes I get irritated when Bishop is asking for money, and I'm like, it shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard, because the Lord is blessing you. You know, we need to make sure that things are taken care of, not only for the kingdom, but for the man of God and beyond. And it is He that empowers us to get wealth. You know, when we're sick and we're going through a situation, and then you want to call on a church and you haven't put nothing in, it's just like a bank. If you ain't made a deposit, you can't pull nothing out.
Exactly.
So it's not that hard.
You know,
so those of you that are listening in, Dr. J is having his 60th birthday party, and he is worthy of the celebration. Now, there's a Cash App, $sign.
The Cash App is going to actually be Dr. J.R. Thicklin.
Dr. J.R. Thicklin? Okay.
Yeah. And the Zelle is going to be manofpurpose2000@gmail.com.
Okay. So you can use this for the Zelle, manofpurpose2000@gmail.com. And you can also email him at manofpurpose2000@gmail.com if you want more information about this celebration that's taking place. Exactly. So that you can, you know, sow into his life. If you can't come, people, we got people that are listening to us globally, and you can't come, and you know, you've listened to the show, and this has been a blessing. Sow into his life. He's just a baby. He's 60 years old. He's a baby. Sow into his life so he can get some more milk.
Well, thank you so very much. And we look forward to it. And, and we're not tired yet. And I'll say this to them because I know we want to segue everything. One of the things I've learned most recently, and I'm grateful to Bishop Russell Tomlinson, and he spoke into my life for probably about 3.5, 4 years ago. And he said something to me that stood out that really just changed my trajectory. 2 years ago, I came through having to have emergency brain surgery, and God has been so faithful inside of that. And I'll be honest with you, at the time, it looked like so many things were looking bleak. I was really trying to recalibrate and understand myself. And there was personal thoughts I was having. And out of nowhere, in my conversation with Dr. Russell Tomlinson, he was ministering to me. We were on a phone call. And he just looked like he opened my book and read my mail. But the one thing that he said to me that I will never forget, he said, I'm going to say something to you. He said, because God isn't through with you yet. He says, I need you to understand that though you are saying I'm getting older, God said to tell you that your age is not your cage.
Okay.
And when I received that my age was not my cage, it gave me a whole new birth, a whole revamping, a whole relaunching. And what I'm saying to you is this, that understand something. Sam Walton did his best work, when he was older, past that. Colonel Sanders founded Kentucky Fried Chicken way afterward. And so we have to understand that even in this hour here, we continue to do the things that we do because we've been commissioned. We're on assignment. And everybody's assignment doesn't look the same. We have to understand where we've been called to be, and we have to do exactly how we started this show. We have to not miss our moment.
Don't miss the moment. And, I'm so excited about you because of the fact that you're a man that has taken on the mantle and responsibility of sowing and giving into lives. And, like I said, I'll be 65 and I'm so happy that I still have the activity of my limbs.
Absolutely.
And I still have my king by my side.
Absolutely. And that's the thing that have kept us alive and well. You was talking about a few minutes ago about, in fact, we never look at what we don't have. We always look at, Lord, let me use what's in my hand, what you've given me. Let's use it. And we talk about, even live on this show here, we've been doing for years. There are many times we have sown into the lives of high school graduates.
Oh, yeah.
Graduates.
I forgot about that. Every school, every Christmas.
And we do those type things. We're supporting
Thanksgiving.
All those things we have done and we continue to do, not because we necessarily have it to do, but because of the fact we're moved to do it and we're compelled to do it. And we understand sowing. We understand the fact of being able to also seize that moment, because you may be sowing into the life of the next great physicist, the next great engineer, the next great lawyer, the next great doctor. You may be sowing into those lives there, and you're entering a person's life at a particular season of the life, and you're able to make a difference. So it's one of the things that we enjoy.
It should be everyone's purpose in life to help someone along the way. I mean, every weekend, like especially on Sunday, I go to a large church and stuff. And while I'm there, I'm always praying and asking God who I can bless.
Absolutely.
Who can I bless? And the Lord will speak to you. And the reason why I do that, and the reason why I sold when it comes to Christmas and Thanksgiving and back to school is because my children and I wound up homeless when I decided to leave my ex at the time. And we didn't have anything. And it was hard to get anything. And I said, I wish that someone would know or see or perceive that there was a need, knowing I was a single mother with 4 children, newly divorced, and I had needs, but I didn't ask nobody for nothing. That's why I worked so hard. I didn't ask anybody for nothing. Not even my family knew when I was going through. You said you didn't even know I was going through something, but I worked and I didn't want to, and so, that was my choice. That was my choice and my decision. But there's nothing wrong with asking for help, because when you ask for help, you remain strong. But I had a little pride in me because of the fact that I was in this situation and I didn't cause the situation, but I was in it. And I just took on the responsibility and the weight on my back and said, well, you got yourself into it. You got to get yourself out. That was my mentality. And back then, people always talked about you and had something to say and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want that because I was so focused on getting to the next level.
Absolutely.
So that's why I didn't ask them. But I prayed and I said, if someone would just, perceive, pick up that there was a need there and just give it, not
Exactly.
expecting anything in return. Because, a lot of times when you give, there's tags attached to it.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
didn't want nobody owning me because I was owned for 19 years to abuser. And
Absolutely.
my mindset was nobody's going to put me in a cage again. So that was my mentality. But I sow and I always ask people, who can I bless? And because of that, God has blessed me. He's blessed my husband. He's blessed my children. And it is my reasonable service.
Absolutely.
It is my reasonable service. Now, we're going to segue into the next part of our show. Don't miss your moment, because,
Absolutely.
the elections are coming up, and, so much is spiraling in the news, and
Wow.
people are saying they're not going to vote, and some are saying they are going to vote, and everybody has their opinions. But it is important
Absolutely.
for us at this dispensation in our life.
Mm-hmm.
It is important for us not to miss this moment, regardless of who you vote for, because I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. If you're Republican, that's fine. If you're a Democrat, that's fine. If you're independent, that's fine. But don't miss the moment.
Absolutely. Dr. Val, so much have happened since we were last on. We took July off, basically, as you said. But think about what's happened in the last 15, 16 days. As I said, President Biden decided that he was not going to run. And we saw Vice President Kamala Harris immediately step in and seize the moment. She's broken records. And when I say this, we're still talking about don't miss your moment, because inside of that, what has happened is that the energy of the party has changed, and really of the country has changed. Today, she made history again in choosing her vice presidential running mate, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. And here's the thing about it: for every person that feels that their vote don't count, well, we have been parading the mantra, "Your vote is your voice forever." And I'm excited about it because you know what? We have a guest that's with us tonight. He's not only a champion organizer, he is a man of God, a man of faith, but he gets it. And one of the things that have been so amazing about it is him understanding the moment that we have. And I'd like to introduce him tonight because, in fact, this is one of my trusted friends, trusted brothers. He's not only a great community organizer, he's a great friend. He's a man of God. I see him reach across to help people inside of so many things. And I just want us to give a hot topic from the soul. Welcome to none other than the Reverend Ray Whiteley himself, the great pastor, the great organizer. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Good night.
Listen.
Well, I'm excited to hear what you have to say, because my brother, Dr. J, has spoken so highly of you, and he knows that you have something to say about not missing this moment of this season that we're in right now.
Where do you want me to start?
I would like for you to start about the fact of just the things that have taken place and why it is so important that we not miss the moment, because we're in a moment in time as a country. Listen, what's on the line is really freedom, and not only freedom, it's history. Either way it goes, history will be made. We can risk the history of going back into history inside of the thing. We got the Constitution and democracy on the line, or we can look at what it means to go forward inside of making history, breaking the norms, breaking the ceiling. There's an opportunity for, in the first time in the life of this country, in the history of this country, that it may be led by a woman. And then secondarily, a woman who happened to be Black, a woman of color. For the first time, we are seeing some things shift, and we're seeing, once again, a new energy that is taking place in a sense of optimism. But how do we encourage the people, don't sit this one out? Don't sit on the sideline and become part of just the complaining group. I remember President Obama, one of the things he would say, don't boo, vote. And inside of that. So definitely I want to talk to you because there are things that we must do to organize, to gather people together, to cause people to recognize how important they do have a part in their outcome. And that's what is so important, getting them engaged and organizing.
Yeah. Pastor Thicklin, first of all, thank you for having me on this platform. It means a lot.
Yes.
Coming from one of the giants like you who've been working so hard on the battlefield. I'm honored just to be able to be here to share with you. You mentioned about the moment that we're in, but I want to just expand it just a little bit more.
Yes.
We have a President Obama type energy.
Right.
And I think that the Black community on a whole, we may have squandered some of the power that comes with that energy.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, rebuilding infrastructures within our community.
Yes.
Rebuilding the community concept. How do we focus on building Black businesses, building Black families, building Black communities, right? How do we use this energy to really dive into some of those things and not be pawns, right? There are
Absolutely.
certain things that we could be in this moment. We could be architects,
Yes.
we could be pawns, or we could be spectators.
Wow.
Well, the goal that we have is to encourage everybody to be an architect in
Right.
what change looks like in this energy, and not only focus on the outcome of the November 5th election.
Exactly.
So
And-
how have we been intentional about organizing? We've been reaching out to churches, right?
Absolutely.
And how do we have one drum, one sound about voter engagement?
Yes.
You know, and thanks to your efforts and the efforts of so many others about bringing churches into a space that we could really educate around why this is important, why we should re-engage, what our communities can even look like, but
Yes.
most importantly, listening to people, listen to their reasons for why they chose not to engage in this moment or previous moment. So having the Black male listening sessions have been really, really educational. Listening to our millennials, how they feel disenfranchised, has been key too. So that's where we could start with those things in mind. They say start with the end in mind.
Absolutely.
How do we do that?
You know, we've heard so many mantras over the years. No, child left behind, no person left behind, and yet it's still so often we have found ourselves left behind in the process, left behind in helping to set the agenda, left behind in determining the outcome. And one of the things I'm hearing you say, and I see being demonstrated, is that we have to understand the power of organizing. That you can have a lot of frustration, and the frustration can lead to chaos. Or you can have a lot of frustration and it can lead to synergistic energy and galvanizing. And what you're saying, if we're going to be part of the architect, and we're going to be part of the architect, we're going to have to be strategic in doing so. Meaning the fact, yes, we can all voice frustration. We can all say, we don't like this and we're afraid and we can't let this happen. But if we don't come together, as you're saying, listen to one another, organize, strategize, and understand that we really play a part in our own outcome. We really can. And in doing so, and I love it. I mean, you guys have done an awesome job with the Black man listening session. Why? Because oftentimes the Black man has been left out. Who seems to care about what he thinks inside of it. But when we hear what he thinks, he's oftentimes that mouthpiece. He's echoing the things that reverberate with this community. What are the things that are barriers to us? What are the things that we need to see happen? And what are the things? Because we are moving beyond the days where you can just give us crumbs and say even the dog get the crumbs to fall from the master table. But we don't want crumbs anymore. I'm sorry.
Right. Right.
Why want crumbs when I want the whole loaf? I want the whole. I want the meal. I don't want the crumb. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
when we
But
come
how
together
do we
collectively,
be
we can change that.
how do we be knowledgeable about what we want though? Right? How do we
Yes.
share? I think that black male people don't want to hear from them. And our millennials feel as if you don't even care, right?
Right.
So
Mhm.
we can't leave them behind, but we can't leave our legacy voters either. Those voters
Exactly.
that are in those pews who show up every time and religiously vote, right? How
Right.
do we create space that we could educate them on what's really going on, right?
Mhm.
How do we connect that energy that's happened on the national level back to the local elections that play key roles in our daily lives? How do we
Absolutely.
do that? That's what I'm talking about, where we squandered power
Mhm.
around our beloved president, that we
Right.
should have been doing some of these things. How do we
Right.
create the infrastructure that will last over time?
Right.
So I get excited around the opportunity um, to just embrace change. Not to add, Vice President Harris has Jamaican roots. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right? So it hits home for me, right?
Right.
Where her grandmother and my wife's grandmother have pictures together. So we're
Wow.
connected, but
Yes.
we really cannot miss an opportunity to educate our parishioners, Pastor Thicklin. How do
Right.
we hold space after church that we could talk about the ballot issues? How do we hold space to make sure that the ones who've been dropped from the voting roll
Exactly.
are re-registered? Because if you haven't voted in 6 to 7 years, you're dropped and you don't even know. Palm Beach County has dropped over 300,000 voters from the roll, and they don't even know that they're dropped. How
Hmm.
do we get that list from our church rolls and verify that they are registered? How do we
Mhm.
hold space to register people for vote by mail ballots, right?
So,
But with our millennials, how do we have events, right, that they can connect to,
mhm.
that's culturally competent, right? They may
Exactly.
not come to church and they may not whatever. They just may want to celebrate with a Trap to the Polls initiative. We're
Mhm.
still educating and we're still
Exactly.
mobilizing and we're still bringing people to the polls to make sure that their voice count, right? But we can't stay trapped in. Now,
Mhm.
I'm gonna tell you something else that may be somewhat uncomfortable for viewers to hear. Um, Sometimes our biggest barriers are the traditional and historic gatekeepers in our communities, you know, who don't want to work together,
Yes.
who want to be that go-to person. And if we see somebody else that's emerging into a leadership position, we kill
Mhm.
them, Pastor Dicklin.
Yeah.
And we've seen it happen so many times. You know, Dr. Valerie is the person. And don't let a Pastor Whiteley start to say something that start to mobilize, and he starts to be the person who you go to for information. Man,
Mhm.
it's a calculated effort from Dr. Valerie and our Pastor Thicklin to
Yes.
suppress it because you're not comfortable. You're gonna wear a
Right.
shirt and tie. Dr. Valerie's gonna be, hair gonna be dead, eyebrows on fleek and all of those types of things. But Pastor Whiteley is gonna show up with a hoodie. He's not like us. He's not like
Right.
us. We can't make space for him to educate.
Wow.
So all of those things, we just gotta say, okay, we are in a moment that change could truly happen. How do
Mhm.
we be uncomfortable for the greater good? I don't want to preach, man, but
Well,
No,
well, Pastor Wiley, I agree with what you're saying, but one of the things I think we need to understand as a people, moreover, is the Senate and what that looks like, laying that foundation. Because when President Obama was in office, his hands were tied. He couldn't get anything done because the House was predominant Republican. So a lot of things weren't done. And we, Black people or people of color, we felt because he was there in office, he was going to make everything go away, and everybody that oppressed us, we were going to get back at them because we got this Afro-American in the House. And the mentality is going to be the same thing with Vice President Harris, because they have taken on that same level of mentality of what they perceive it should be, when we really need to focus on also, moreover, those that govern our local communities, and make sure we have those people in place that are going to serve and be for the people. And it's sad to say, it's a lot of people that have no idea who the senator of the state is, who the governor is, who the commissioners are. They have no idea of all these positions, and they cry about there's no money, we can't get things done. But there's a lot of money in communities that are available for the people in certain communities, but nobody knows about it. And then
Dr.
you see
Valerie,
and then you see these buildings, you see these plants going in different places and stuff. Why? Because they have to use the money, because money wasn't utilized that it was intended for.
Well, Dr. Valerie, I agree. And just two things. That's where churches need to go back to be in that space that we learn about who the senators are. Because after service, Sunday mornings, we have a captive audience. And if we're going to use an hour after service or a half an hour after service to educate those masses that came for the sermon, we should do that. You know, how do we identify roles and responsibilities? That's definitely something that we should.
But you got a lot of people that are unchurched that don't go to church. So we need to make sure that we tell people they need to investigate themselves to find out who it is running their local communities.
I don't think that a lot of people, from our experience, we say to do the research, but they don't know where to start. But if I educate Medea go home and educate everybody else. So how do I start here and let that education just happen? And what she will do is bring them back so they could hear a little bit more. How do we have a family and friend service, and after that, then we educate people? But that's not the only thing. How do we go into the parks and have those listening sessions, Pastor Thicklin? How do we have listening sessions in beauty salons and quote unquote go into all the world?
Right.
Not only could I speak through a pastor's lens, because that's just what I do. I think that I'm a minister of the gospel first before I'm an organizer.
Exactly.
You know? So how do we go into all the world and educate and influence? Now, the second part about the monies that are not spent within our community is a lot of people who spend it with other areas, they know exactly who we are. They just intended to spend it in those areas.
Wow.
You know, and we have folk who are
gotta hold them accountable
about things, right? Folk are upset about things, but they upset about the wrong things. I've been hearing, you know what, let me leave that part alone. I ain't gonna go on TMZ on your show. But we need to be upset about the fact that people can't get houses. Right. People can't afford
very upset.
We got to be and vocal about it. We got to be mad because the healthcare is messed up. We got to be mad because the law enforcement system needs a little tweaking. Now, I'm not getting away from the importance of the national election. I'm just talking about how do we take that energy from the national election and bring it back to local election, where the impact on my life, on my daily life,
daily living,
you know, is great. And how do we use these platforms to educate? Pastor Thicklin, let me push back, right? How about next week, we just talk about roles and responsibilities of the Senate, of the commissioners, of the judges, of the whatever. I mean, how do we use these platforms to really, really educate?
And that is a great question, and that's what we have to do. Even these platforms here, we can use them to educate, because these are conversations that we're having. Even now, I was looking over. We have a person who's viewing from Hawaii right now, grasping this information there, and I'm looking here right now. One of the questions that Ruthie Putman says, so how can we get a person who has 34 counts of criminal charges sworn in to run as the president of the United States, but you have the young men and women who have served time for crime that they committed, even the president who's sworn to run for president, who tried to kill the White House, down a person, but he can run for president. And yet it's still, we have individuals who don't have 34 counts, who have felons and they can't get jobs. They're not allowed to do
right things they did as juveniles, and they can't get a job because it's on their record. I mean, these are things that we need, that should be handled at the local level, and then taken into, because I still want to get back to yes, we need to vote for the president, but the president doesn't carry the whole weight of our nation.
It's voting locally. It is voting locally.
We need to break down everybody's role and how this whole gamut takes place. Because, I know a lot of young people that say, we voted Democrat and we ain't doing that no more. So we voting Republican because they ain't do nothing. The Democrats ain't did nothing for me, but they don't know the whole scope or the whole story. And I appreciate you, Pastor Whiteley, saying we need to have Medea, grandma, be able to channel down. But a lot of these folks ain't listening to grandma. Grandma don't have no weight, no power.
Yeah.
So
what do you think?
We've got to find another way to do this.
I have a principle that works, and it's a biblical principle. And what it says is, go into all the nations. We have these black male listening sessions, Dr. Valerie, that the first time that we had one, we were in a smoke-in, because that's where the men who we wanted to hear from hang out. Then we wanted to hear from quote unquote Ray and JoJo them. So guess where we went? We went under the tree and pulled up a lawn chair and started having some conversations.
Well, thank you. You did unconventional ways, and that's what I think needs to be done.
Absolutely. Now, here is what's so plain to me, right? We're trying so hard to fit into the conventional, right? That we miss the unconventional ways that resonate with Black folks. The unconventional ways that resonate with Black folks. But we're trying to do it in another way that's still good. But that resonates with another community. It doesn't resonate with Black folks that we're trying to reach. It doesn't minimize the level of excellence that we should always strive for. You should be prepared. You should be knowledgeable, respectful. You know what I mean? But those unconventional ways resonate with us. Pastor Thicklin, I had a thought today. The next candidate forum that we do, I'm having worship service.
I love it.
I'm having worship service if it's 5 or 10 minutes of praise and worship.
Exactly.
That's what resonate with us. It's something about music and Black folks and drums, right? That you want to make a strong. That's the connection that we need to continue that education, right? And not try to fit into another person's norm that doesn't seem real to us, that we just don't come back.
Your point is so well taken, and it's something. Thank you so much, Sheila. Sheila talked about the fact we need to educate instead of preaching. Go vote. We need to educate, and that's what we're saying. So, explain a little bit more about some of the initiatives that we talked about as clergy. We have traditionally known of Souls to the Polls, and Souls to the Polls have been very effective for many years. But then the ingenious way of saying, what about polls to the souls? Right. And that's the educational part there, because as you said, Dr. Val, when people don't understand even the roles of certain offices, when they don't even understand what it means, when they don't even understand why these things happen, they can't wrap their arms around it. So they don't see the importance of knowing who they're voting for. So they click a box without understanding. When I was a little boy growing up in Selma, Alabama, I often tell the story. One of the things that resonated with me was the power of the church, the clergy. And there was particular a preacher by the name of Reverend Lorenzo Harrison Sr., Jr. He was a firebrand preacher, but he was a politician. And I'm telling you, I still see myself as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid in the balcony of Second Baptist Church. And I would be so glad when he came to our church because he was fiery. He got him engaged. He talked about why you have to get out and vote. I mean, I was standing up in it. There wasn't Obama at that time, but by the time he got through, I was standing up saying, yes, we can. Because he was so energetic and he moved us. He got us to understand the fact that we played a part. We needed to be educated. We need to understand how valuable we were to the process. And I think that's what we're really calling for in a different way today, but that we have to educate. We need to understand why, because we're living in a day and time, not just but Gen Zs. Yeah, these are the generation that are saying, no, we're not going to be left behind, and we're not just marking things just to mark. We need to understand, and we need to make this. We need to make this important because also the next generation of leaders are coming up. Which said it even in the state of Florida. We got next generation of leaders that are coming up. We see people like Javante Edmonds, young people. We're seeing other people that are coming around. These individuals are coming around, but we need to be equipping also that next generation of leaders who understand this is not just about a title or position. This is about understanding the power of influence and how we can use that to really open doors for our people.
We have this initiative with Polls to the Souls. Souls to the Polls is a celebration space that we go out and we vote early. But Polls to the Souls is where we bring the polls to the churches, where we make sure that your voter information is up to date. Most people, they don't know, in Palm Beach County now, Florida, you have to register for an absentee ballot every year. Most folks just don't know that. How do we share that with them, right? Yeah. That you have to register every year. So it's bringing that component to the church. How do we do something fun that maybe on Sunday, whatever, everybody bring their vote by mail ballot in, and I can't tell you who to vote for or how to fill it out, but there's an accountability and there's an energy that comes with a group, right? I shared that it was a couple elections ago. My family, my kids, and I'm calling them out if they watch this, they forgot to vote. It's not that they didn't want to. So what the wife and I did was, right, on one Sunday, all my kids come over and have dinner once a month, minimum once a month. So how do I make sure that they all get a vote by mail ballot, and at dinner time on this time, we're going to fill it out together. And there is something that comes with the discussion of, why am I voting for this person? Why am I voting for this person? Yada, 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 right? But how do we make voting a celebration? How do we make it an event? How do we celebrate that? And we don't celebrate enough, to me, right? So how could we just celebrate that? So it's bringing the polls to the souls and having that initiative done throughout Palm Beach County. And Pastor Thicklin, this is exciting because I got a call last night from somebody down in Broward County that wanted to know, how do we be a regional clergy voice? How do we have a presence? How do we have one drum, one sound, right? Uniting Black churches to increase voter turnout. Uniting Black churches to increase voter turnout. And it's specifically reaching out to do what you just said, bringing the polls to the souls, educating, empowering, mobilizing us to go to the polls and using our voice. And I guarantee, and I'll say this and then I will stop. The consultants go into precincts and they say this precinct had a 25% turnout. That precinct had a 75% turnout. Where do you think these politicians spend all their times? Why do you think those roads on the other side are so clean, the streets are so whatever, and blah, 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 and the other side isn't like that side? Because they go into the precincts and they see this precinct only have 15 or 20% turnout, while the other precinct did. So if we're going to increase just the precincts, right? Mm-hmm. And folk will come back and say, what happened over here?
Exactly.
We need to make sure that folks start getting some stuff so we can stay in office. That's where that part comes in. You know, how do we coordinate Belle Glade churches, Palm Bay churches, Pahokee churches, because we cannot leave our Western brothers out.
Exactly.
You know, how do we bring our Boca pastors, Derry pastors, Boynton pastors? Mm-hmm. I'm talking about 100 church initiative.
Right.
100 church initiative that we could really make a dent into our voting power.
And that's the effort that has happened that we're doing. And I'm very excited to hear Broward that is saying, how do we make this regional? Because once again, the blueprint is there. The template is there. And it is about recognizing the power that we do leverage, that we have an influence that we do, but being willing to say, hey, you know, many hands make the load lighter. And when we stand together in solidarity like that, we increase that. Educating the parishioners and educating the people in our community, it does a lot for us all. You gave the perfect example because we know this. We know that, you know, the politicians have their consultants. What are they looking at? They're looking at trends. They're looking at what was the voter turnout. So we wonder why this side over here gets all the attention, the beautification, they get all these things, improvements happening. And then we think that it's just merely racism. It's not always racism. Sometimes it's to respond to what? Who's feeding me? Who's going out there voting? Where's the turnout? Now, when we reverse that and we have power, because now we've increased our turnout, we're there. We reckon, hold up, those people are now speaking. We got to listen to them because, in fact, they've shown us the power of their vote. And so that, once again, it goes back to it's an equal shared experience. We try to educate other pastors to understand this. We're very selective by who we allow to come and grab that mic and speak to our people. We don't want to empower the invisible candidate. We knew nothing about them until they showed up during voting season. There's no track record of what they've done. We've seen nothing that they've done before, period. And so now in educating our people, we begin to turn the table where don't come bringing us your agenda, but listen, here's our list of demands. This is what we need to see. And so guess what? If you want this mic, if you want this mic, if you want this president, then guess what? You got to be in line.
Pastor Thicklin, in addition to, shout out to the pastors who are actually having, because when the electeds come, they know exactly what to tell them because they are representing the voices of the congregants. You know, if you come to me to have a conversation, I am going to talk to you about what affordable housing looks like, because not only do I hear it from my parishioners, I hear it from the community and also hear it from my kids. It's just a matter of time for they all about to move back in.
Exactly right. And we can't have that.
$2,800, $2,900. Who can pay that?
Exactly.
You know, so I have to voice that. I have to give voice to community safety initiatives. I have to give voice to mental health initiatives. You know, I have to give voice to that. And if you're not talking about that, I like trees just like everybody else. I like whales just like everybody else. You know, but right now, that's not what's driving me.
Exactly.
You know, let's work on that. And here is something that organizations, don't call out any specific organization names, they have a tendency to harness the energy that comes from hurting people and direct it to saving trees while folk are still hurting.
Exactly.
You know, and we got to start asking these black males, why they turned away from the Democratic Party.
Yes.
Did they think that the party was using their platform to speak to their issues? Now, I'm not saying leave. What I'm saying is that we all got to do something a little bit different here. And we got to start raising the issues. We got to start raising the issue. I'm not talking about the safe issues. We need to start talking about why unarmed black men are at risk of losing their lives just by interacting with police officers. We need to talk about the fact that that young lady got shot in the face.
Exactly.
Yes, there is a lot that we must discuss, and we are going to continue on with these issues at hand. So I invite you to
have you back. Yes.
Yes, invite you to come back because I have a whole lot more to say to you and regarding this. So I'm going to be bringing it with you.
More to say. May I say this before we log off? Pastor Thigpen, thank you for your sacrifice, man. I remembered when you called me into a call to organize clergies regionally from Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County. Thank you for leading this charge with organizing pastors to step up to this clarion call in this moment.
Thank you. Thank you for being that champion. Stand aside, and so much work to do. And we're going to have it back. You said it. We're going to use this platform to educate and to make these things happen, because we're going to all play that part that is necessary. And so thanks once again, Pastor Ray Whiteley, right there, Faith in Florida community organizer. Listen, if you're watching, listen, the blueprint is there. The template is there. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Let's organize, make it happen.
Indeed. Thank you again. And also, don't forget, Dr. J's birthday is coming up, so you can reach out to him, and there's the information for that. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel, Hot Topics from the Soul. And this show has been a blessing. Pass it along so that you could be back next week to hear what else we have to say about not missing the moment.